What's going on, guys? It's JC Ariza here at NST, and here we got Daniel Barcena. Obviously, we're here to talk about baseball. So, Daniel, kind of introduce yourself to everybody. Kind of tell us where you were before NST and how it's going now.
So my name's Daniel, like JC said. I started pitching November 22, I think, like officially, like took it serious. And before that, I was just kind of doing my own thing, tread, drive line, looking stuff up, free program, stuff like that. Eventually, I looked into the dojo, which I met Nick Neville through that, and he kind of started me in this whole process of learning how to move correctly and everything. And then after about November to I'd say like the August of the following year ish, maybe July, late July, um, Nick got me in touch with JC with NST. And so yeah, I was kind of lost before and I found a stable program that kind of taught me how to move. And I think I hit like a somewhat of a plateau. Like I was already had a good arm. I was somewhat strong. Like I wasn't really going up or down. I was just kind of in the same. And I got with JC and I started, moving differently. We started doing the motor preference stuff and that helped me a lot, not just with, I mean, obviously I've had my velo jumps and everything and I've built a lot off of that new information, but I've also like just been healthier. I'd say like my range is smaller now. It's not, 90 to 94. It's like, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. It's more consistent movement.
100%. You talk about before having, a stable program and having something to actually follow that was meant for you, right? So, with that being said, how does NST give you that consistency on a day-to-day basis?
So after we did the movement assessment and then we did the motor preference stuff and everything, like we have like in the app, obviously we have like all of the correctives that we have to do. So anything like any deficiency or like one month, like I'm like really struggling with like my shoulder, like it's just like tight or not moving well. Like that month, I'll just focus on a lot of my correctives being for that part. And then same with the lifts and everything, it's all there. So like every, if I'm lifting 4 days a week in the off season, I have my 4 lifts when I have to do them, what I have to do. And it's all just kind of laid out in the app. It's like super easy to follow, like really simplifies everything. You don't have to be like, oh, like what do I have to do today? And try to just, wing it when you're in the gym or anything.
100%, 100%. And that leads me to my next question when we talk about consistency and just the game of baseball and not necessarily that it's an inconsistent game. You have to do consistent things to be as consistent as possible. But at the end of the day, we're not going to be as consistent as we want to be. So
Yeah.
with that being said, I mean, I know when we had started working, you were getting up to that low 90s range. But what people don't know, and obviously we promote that you've thrown topped out 97 not too long ago. But what people don't know is that your velo has also fluctuated. Um,
hmm
Finding these new ways on not how to throw, but how you prefer to throw. Can
hmm
you kind of take us into how when we first started working, how we got you up to 96, and then went down back down to the low 90s, and then now back up to mid to high 90s. Can you kind of explain that process and how that went down essentially?
So initially, this was pre-motor preference. So this was just the movement assessment stuff. Um, we found like my deficiencies and everything and worked those things out. So I was, I basically had the same mechanics, didn't necessarily change the way I was pitching, but I was just able to move and get into better positions because of like the correctives and everything that we were doing. And so I think like just like that, my body kind of opening up a little bit more allowed me to like get back up
Hmm.
and kind of I think I got up to there that, like that one day where I was like, I hit that 96. And I think I was just one of those days where I was moving really well, but I don't think I was moving like you said, like the way I was really supposed to. And then we started doing the motor preference stuff. And at first, I was like, I understood it and I understood like what I was supposed to do, but I was really fighting it. And like my body was really fighting it because, I just learned how to pitch and I was doing that movement for like about a year, I'd say. And so like my body wanted to keep doing that, even though like it wasn't like ideal uh in
Mhm.
terms of like consistency.
So it,
Like going
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, bro. So
like
basically, okay, so basically when we had motor preference tests to do, when I had told you to go in your preferred movements, it was still uncomfortable.
initially at first because I
Okay.
was so like my body was so like I guess muscle memory into like what I was doing already.
And the aftermath of finally doing the drills and getting to your preferred movements, what would you say that aftermath was?
Well, the increase in velocity obviously, but just like the consistency in the velocity. Like I'm not like, like 90 93 or 90 92 one day and then like the next day I'm like 4 to 5. It's like I can consistently, even if like I don't even feel that great that day, with like the movements that I'm doing now, able to just consistently find that same range that I've been at.
And it's safe to say that even though you went through that uncomfortable phase of not necessarily learning your preferred movements, but starting to do your preferred movements, that it led to what it is now.
Yeah, 100%. Because it
Perfect.
definitely was uncomfortable at first. Like it was, I wouldn't say it felt like I felt uncomfortable, but it's just like my body was just like, no, like this is how we've been doing this. Like we just have to keep going. And so like I just kind of had to almost break it up. And with the drills and everything, like that kind of helped kind of train me into feeling it the right way.
Yeah, and even before, I mean, you don't know this, just because this is during a time when I was learning motor preferences and so forth. But I know we did a video not too long ago of when you hit 96, and I talked about your swing. So I wasn't motor
Hmm.
preference certified yet. However, talking to Anthony Rodriguez about motor preferences, getting information about him before I went to get certified, I had saw in your swing that you were more of an aerial based hitter. And at the end of the day, you were a hitter, you were a position player, you were a catcher. Seeing that home run swing, seeing you hit like that, I'm like, why is he pitching like he is?
Yeah,
Uh, so even then, that jump to the 96 was I credit that to also the little bit of knowledge that we had
that
from
is true.
preferences, but
Hmm.
I'm glad that I got certified to dive deeper into it because, like you said, even though you hit 96, right, the consistency and ranges of velocity still weren't there until now,
Yeah,
and now we're finally honed into that after going through that little bit of a struggle. This is just a true testament of like, dude, you just got to stick with it because at the end of the day, like, I'm not telling you this because it's coming out of my ass, bro. I've had years and years of studies on why this stuff works, and why it's so personalized too. Because I guess that's where my next question would be: do you feel like this is cookie cutter? Or do you feel like this is really like just perfectly cut to you?
I I don't see it. I don't think it can be cookie cutter just because like I mean you see it all the time like just if you watch pitchers in the big leagues like I mean there's similarities I think because like you have to be in certain positions at the end of the day, but the way that they get to that position or like the way that they transfer their energy is like it's not the same. So like obviously like everyone can't just throw one way because
Mhm.
like I think I was watching on like I think it was Ben Joyce and how he actually has like he does some things so well that it like takes away from like the things that he doesn't do that well. And it's like obviously he's also a freak of nature. Like he's
Well,
different. So like but I I don't think what we're doing can be cookie cutter because like I was saying, there's so many differences. And obviously I've just in myself, I always tried to throw one way. And I mean, it got me to a certain point where, and then I just kind of just stayed there and I couldn't keep going up. I was just there that was the cap. And so I think, learning that new stuff of like how I'm, should be moving or like what feels best for me was definitely like help me keep going. So I don't think it can be cookie cutter.
Just going back to your velocity,
Mhm.
talk about throwing 993 and now versus 93, 95, topping 97. What are the differences between hitting 90 and hitting 95? Why is one harder than the other?
I mean, I've always like believed that like if anyone trains for it, like regardless of mechanics or anything, like if you work for it, I think anyone could hit 90 miles an hour at some point in their life if they really wanted to and worked for it, just purely based off strength. Because I was there once, I think it was my sophomore year, I had hit 91 with, I mean, it was just straight, just my arm. So it like I had no mechanics. I didn't really know how to use my body. I had a good arm. And so I was able to hit 90 miles an hour. I think when it starts to get that 90 plus, even well, obviously even more than that, like 95 and up, I think it's a lot more difficult. I think like the adjustments that like you have to make are like a lot smaller, and like the timing like has to be there. Like if you aren't timing your movements correctly, like you'll, fluctuate a lot more, which is what another thing with these motor preferences was like the consistency in the velo that we were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't think I mean you have to be strong, obviously. Like you need to be able to output enough force to be able to do it. But the movement of like the way that you're moving your body, your mechanics, your timing, everything, it's like the adjustments are so minuscule, like to keep going up and up from, 90, 95, 95 plus, etc. and then on. So,
100%, bro.
mm,
And just lean into what you just said there. I get a lot of kids DMing us about, different tips, different cues. But what cue has helped you the most in terms of getting in tune with your mechanics and throwing as hard as you throw?
left knee, right shoulder, just bringing that knee and like getting that pelvis like coil. Because I was actually overdoing it like in the last spring and through the summer. I was exaggerating it, I guess, and like almost turning around. But when I started like, feeling more comfortable with staying more stacked, not sinking as deep and everything, I didn't feel like I had to turn as much. And so just keeping that consistent, still like bringing my left knee to my right shoulder and feeling that coil I think that was like the biggest thing. I think if you like, to me, if I don't feel the coil, I feel like I can't put anything into the ball. And so like having that cue of left knee, right shoulder, I feel it every single time. And so like it kind of creates that consistency.
And you're an aerial, so you talk about the coil. And those who don't know what aerial is, it's someone who's more forefoot pronounced. So being that he's more forefoot pronounced, the sitting into his back leg, uh, we learn from a lot of different pitching coaches. Oh, sit into your heel, yada yada yada. Those things do work, but it might not work for you. And at least for Daniel,
Mhm.
it doesn't work for him. He was a catcher, so he was used to being in a crouched position. It wasn't uncomfortable for him to get into his back leg in terms of getting into his heel. However, we learned through motor preferences that he prefers to be tall and fall, right? So those are the cues that he's looking to do instead of feeling himself drop and drive, right? He wants to feel tall and fall. So that allows him to get the coil that we talk about. And he's also an internal dominant thrower, and not thrower, internal dominant rotator. So even though he's good on both sides, he prefers to rotate internally. So he ends up being stacked internally instead of getting that what do they call it? A vertical shin, right? That people
Mhm.
like to get a vertical shin. Very big in the biomechanics world. However, it does not work for Daniel. Daniel can obviously attest to that too. But um, those little things and understanding, hey, like we're not going to do the cookie cutter mechanics that everybody learns. We're going to show you exactly what works for your body. So with that being said, is there anything else you wanted to add, Daniel?
I would just say it's worth it. I think it's worth it. You have to give it some time. I mean, it's not there's no quick fix for anything. I think there's cues that can get you what you want, but at the end of the day, if you want to be more than that, like it's not going to be just like right in front of you in a week. Like it's going to take time if you're willing to give up that time, it's 100% worth it.
Yes, Daniel, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you hopping on.
Yes, sir.
Daniel's obviously seen the value in us, and he continues to excel and have a successful path. Road to 100. Let's call that.
Gotta
Obviously,
put on some weight.
yeah, dude. What are you, 220 right now? No,
210.